California takes pride in $5 gas at the pump. It is, once again, the Alligator News Roundup. Thanks for joining. Plus, $4,000 fine because the auto thief failed to wear a seatbelt. Help wanted. Waymo hires gig workers to close car doors. And more help wanted. Sharpshooters to harvest deer with night vision goggles and silencers. Here we go.
Number 4. New York Post. Desperate California importing oil from Bahamas using century-old loophole as state faces highest U.S. gas prices.
To ask why California, one of the most oil-rich states in these United States, doesn't simply use their own refined gasoline instead of importing it would be to evidence that you might really be out of touch with post-pandemic political platforms. Since 2024, gasoline imports to California have increased by a factor of 11. That is a 1,000% increase in the quantity of imports and may help explain why California prices at the pump are nearing $5 per gallon. The state assembly in Sacramento prefers that others, rather than Californians, contribute to global climate doom. That, of course, does nothing to stop Californians from demanding gasoline produced someplace else. The someplace else is mostly Texas and Louisiana. Last year, 2 of the dozen or so California refineries closed their doors. Phillips 66 at Los Angeles and Valero at San Francisco. Those 2 had produced over 17% of California's gasoline. They had found it financially impossible to continue under the well-intentioned and poorly contemplated CARB guidelines regulating vehicle emissions. In addition, under the 1970 U.S. Clean Air Act, California is the only state allowed to set stricter emission standards than the federal government. Beware of giving legislators freedom to make law. By statute, California gasoline is cleaner and costs more to refine. Compliant gasoline could, of course, be simply pipelined into the Golden State from the Lone Star State, except there are no pipelines. California is a fuel island. No gasoline comes in unless it travels by ocean tanker. Furthermore, due to complexities in the 100-year-old Jones Act, which, as you know, is post-Spanish-American War maritime legislation, the number of tankers allowed to carry oil from the U.S. Gulf Coast to California is limited, and thus expensive. And for various arcane reasons, the route requires transshipment through the Bahamas. All of which means the gas costs close to $5 a gallon in the land of fruits and nuts. Legislation on top of legislation on top of regulation is aided and abetted by a deathly fear of burying a pipeline across the largely unpopulated Great American Southwest Desert. I love California politics. It would be nice if it stayed in California, but it rarely does.
Number 3. Road and Track. Couple hit with $4,000 fine because thief who stole their car was caught not wearing seatbelt.
I love this. Hamid and Layla were asleep in their Australian home when thieves staged a home invasion, searching the house brazenly for items of value. Hamid, awakened by the noise, managed to chase them out. Then they stole his Lexus and drove away. Hamid called police. Crime doesn't pay, even down under. The perps were captured, not by Aussie police, but on digital film by an unattended traffic camera. The image shows a driver operating the vehicle, gasp, without wearing a seatbelt. The car was apparently never recovered, the thieves never identified, and after 3 weeks, police have yet to visit Hamid and Layla to take a report of the theft. Now, despite what some might see as shortcomings, the law enforcement system actually worked flawlessly. The camera generated the automated report, and a citation was issued through the mail for failing to wear the seatbelt while driving. The citation was, of course, imposed upon Hamid, the registered owner of the Lexus. The amount was $4,400 US. Well, think about it. The easiest and most accurate way to assess the fine is simply to match the license tag to the owner, because who else would be driving but the owner, and use the mail service to deliver the court-ordered bill. Chasing crooks is probably way more involved than that. If there is a seatbelt violation, which we now know is taken quite seriously on Australia, the state is owed a fine. Once Hamid coughs up the $4,000, everyone is satisfied. Justice has been served. Any questions?
Number 2. The Mashable. DoorDash drivers are getting paid to close Waymo car doors.
In this super technological world, this one actually makes a lot of sense. With 1,500 robo-taxis operating in the U.S. and presumably all busy all the time, it is quite probable that some jerk with an iPhone and a credit card will jump out of the driverless vehicle at his destination and leave the car door open. This is likely even when the taxi stops in a lane of traffic to discharge the occupant. Of course, safetyness being next to godliness, the Waymo car's interlocked system prevents it from moving with the car door open. Naturally, someone might be reaching back inside for a parcel. So the car remains motionless, stuck at the curb or in traffic. It has become a common enough occurrence that Waymo has reached out to drivers who might happen to be close and who might be reachable via another electronic dispatch. The solution? DoorDash, obviously. DoorDash drivers can pick up $11.25 per response for simply approaching the quiescent Waymo car and slamming the door. Waymo, it is claimed, is working on automatic door closing technology. Well, I'm sure they are. At $11 a pop, it's easy to do the math and figure out how much they can afford to pay for a retrofit. I have visions of terrified customers with long trailing coats or dresses trapped by deaf and mute automated doors as their car powers away into traffic. In the meantime, DoorDash drivers in certain big cities might just have gotten a raise in their gig pay.
Number 1. The Baltimore banner. Baltimore is overrun by deer. The city plans to kill them.
Don't anybody tell PETA about this one. Maryland has always been big white-tailed deer territory. Rural residents who hunt, there are still a few, though a vanishing breed, can keep the outstate population from exploding, but inside the city limits, it's a different story. Wildlife planners say a reasonable deer density is 20 head per square mile. One of Baltimore's city parks has a computed density of 422. That's probably too many in anyone's book. Deer ravage plants, interfere with traffic, collide with cars, and on occasion manage to get inside an occupied home, where, terrified, they destroy furniture and sheetrock, finding a way of escape. The city of has now determined the right way to handle this is quietly, at night, with specially trained personnel, and a USDA grant to pay for it. The trained personnel are snipers, most of whom are former military. The night part refers to invading a city park after hours with night vision gear. The quiet part refers to using a sound-suppressed, high-powered rifle. The plan is that the shooters will clean up after themselves. Being a family publication, I will just say this involves field dressing the downed critter. I would prefer to avoid using the term gut pile, but someone has to deal with that part too. Dressed carcasses will be delivered to area meat processors for butchering. It seems their participation is taken for granted. I happen to know some meat processors there, and I think that's a stretch. Harvested meat will be turned over to the Maryland Food Bank. The aforementioned USDA grant will cover most costs. It all sounds fine. They have all the details worked out. As we have observed before here at the A&R, I find it interesting that the gun is always the problem until it becomes the solution. And thanks for joining the Alligator News Roundup for Friday, February 20, 2026. Break out that old deer rifle and get it zeroed, just in case your city begins to advertise for specially trained contractors. Maybe they'll even foot the bill for your new NVGs. And remember, sound suppressed does not quite mean silenced. When you hear a screen door slamming outside your bedroom window at 2 a.m., you might know that herd culling is in progress. Have a good weekend.
We are so glad you joined us. When you get the call to join the local deer population suppression force in your area, let us know how it goes. We want to see pictures of your night vision goggles.